Good morning. May God's grace be with each of us. Today we'll talk about being transformed by communion. In 2 Corinthians 3:18, we read the following: But we all, with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. During the long time spent in communion with God, the face of Moses had reflected the glory of the divine presence. Unknown to him, his face shone with a dazzling light when he descended from the mountain. Aaron, as well as the people, retreated from Moses and were afraid to come to him. Seeing their confusion and terror, but not knowing the cause, he urged them to come closer. He held out to them the assurance of reconciliation with God and assured them of the restoration of his favor. They noticed nothing in his voice but love and solicitude. And finally, someone ventured to approach him. Too astonished to speak, he silently pointed to Moses' face and then to heaven. The great leader understood what he meant. In their conscious guilt, feeling themselves still under the divine displeasure, they could not bear the heavenly light which would have filled them with joy if they had been obedient to God. By this brightness, God's intention was to impress Israel with the sacred and exalted character of his law and the glory of the gospel revealed through Christ. While Moses was on the mount, God presented to him not only the tables of the law, but also the plan of salvation. He saw that Christ's sacrifice was prefigured by all the types and symbols of the Jewish age, and it was the heavenly light that flowed from Calvary, no less than the glory of God's law, that shed such a radiance upon the face of Moses. That divine illumination symbolized the glory of the dispensation of which Moses was the visible mediator, a representative of the one true intercessor. The glory reflected in Moses' countenance illustrates the blessing to be received by God's commandment-keeping people through the mediation of Christ. It testifies that the closer our communion with God and clearer our knowledge of his requirements, the more fully shall we be conformed to the divine image, and the more readily do we become partakers of the divine nature. How interesting. The last sentence that we just heard, the glory reflected in Moses' countenance, illustrates the blessing to be received by God's commandment-keeping people through the mediation of Christ. When we have a communion with God, we can understand the mediation of Christ. We can understand the blessings that are for us and the trials that Christ passed here on earth. By daily communion with God, we are transformed to honor and glorify the name of the Lord, and our countenance are truly modified. How many times after we have a fervent prayer at the Lord's feet, we go out to work or to shop or to take the kids to school, and you meet someone who tells you, "Today you look beautiful. Your face looks bright." Did you ever hear that? Did you ever have this experience? This is exactly what happens when we are in communion with God. God reflects his Spirit through us to others. It is unfortunate that we do not always have such deep communion with God, a communion that those around us can feel, can see in us. This is the communion we should seek, this intimacy with God that we need to have every day, a relationship so close to God that changes our character, that changes our speech, our face, that changes our life. May we have a communion, an intimacy with God similar to that which Moses had. May we be transformed today. May we reflect Jesus to those around us. We'll meet again tomorrow. Until then, have a blessed day.